So the show came out today. I can't watch it until a little bit later, like tonight. I know. One second. Sorry, it's fine. Okay, so what I was saying is that the show comes out today. It's out. It's already out. I could turn on my TV and watch it, but my partner wants to watch it too. While I wait, I have to read it. I was gonna wait till May, and then I was like, you know what? The show comes out. I just want to be in this world, so let's read this. I have read the first chapter. Lee has a thing for starting out all of her books with a random character, although this one is not as random as in previous books because this character is actually connected to, also this map, I don't think I said this last time, this map is stunning. It is the sister of Princess, is her name Ari? The one that is gonna marry Nikolai. Marry Nikolai. I'm sure you're gonna marry him. So Queen Makai. But this ended interestingly because a black tide of death, as it's described here, came on without a sound and ended up killing her niece, which already makes me believe that the Darkling is back to his bullshit. He's back to his bullshit, y'all. So I wanted to start this vlog with a few of my predictions, a few of my hopes, dreams, aspirations for this story. Okay, so my number one prediction, which is something I talked about in my last vlog, so if you haven't watched that one, I will link it down below for you. But I think, obviously, the Darkling is back, so I think he is not gonna have a redemption arc. He's going to be evil again. I had mentioned in the last vlog that I think he could possibly have a redemption arc. I'm under the impression that his storyline is gonna go one of two ways, which is either a redemption arc, I don't believe that, or he's back on his evil bullshit, which I think is what's gonna happen. Obviously from that first chapter, his darkness is consuming people, it's killing people, but I don't know if that's him expanding that darkness in some way, or if because he's back, what he destroyed in the past is revived like him, or if it's because like things are out of control now that he's back. I have no idea. That I'm unsure about, and I don't have many predictions about it, except that I think that things are gonna go into chaos because he's back. Another theory that I mentioned in the last vlog was that I am convinced that we're gonna see Mal and Alina again. I think that we're gonna see a lot of callbacks to specifically Ruin Rising, and that the crew is gonna link back up and they're gonna go on this adventure to kill the Darkling. I'm also gonna say this, I think Nikolai is gonna die. That's wild to say that he would die at the end of his own duology, but this duology has been so focused on Zoya rather than Nikolai. I could see him dying. I could see him biting the dust. As for him and Zoya, I definitely don't think he's gonna get married, and I think he's gonna end up with Zoya, although I just said he's gonna die, so it doesn't really matter if they end up together, right? But I definitely don't think he's gonna get married, and I think he's gonna confess his love to Zoya, and Zoya's gonna confess his love to him, and then he gonna bite the dust. Honestly, I couldn't give you even one single theory about Nina because I'm still confused about her perspective. Also, something else I wanted to include in this vlog is I did want to get my reactions to the first episode especially, but maybe, I don't know how many episodes I'm gonna watch before I finish this book, but however many I watch, I will give you guys my updates on each episode. So this is exciting. I haven't been this excited about a show and a world since I think Hunger Games. I find it really interesting that we are over 100 pages in and we are just now getting a confrontation with the Darkling. So Nikolai and Zoya go and see him because there's this blight that's ruining lands. It's just leeching the life out of lands. And they've come to the conclusion that his powers aren't back. This is just some phenomenon that's happening probably because he is back alive. But the Darkling asked for Alina. So one of my predictions is that Alina and Mal will come back into the picture. And this is interesting because Alina doesn't have powers. And when I was first making this prediction, I wasn't actually thinking about that when I said it, because now I'm like, well, Alina and Mal could come back into the picture, but what purpose does that serve when she doesn't have any powers anymore? So I'm not saying that she's not gonna come back, because part of me still thinks that that's gonna happen. But now I'm curious because I kind of forget that she doesn't have her sun summoner powers anymore. So like, what would she be able to do? How did we get here, you guys? How did we get the Darkling back? So the thing is, I'm not hating this book as much as I thought that I would, but I'm also not like loving it as much as the last book so far. There have been moments that I really like, but I think the fact that there's been that wrench thrown in there where Nikolai is going to marry this other person has just kind of thrown in this whole thing that I'm not like loving, because their interactions are kind of stilted, because Zoya doesn't want to interfere with him getting to know the new queen, and she's also kind of like arranging the marriage a bit, and he's like, I need you, and it's like, Nikolai, come on, dude. But it's been really sad to be in Zoya's perspective when she starts thinking or talking about that, how their relationship is going to change drastically and how they may not have a friendship anymore that's genuine and just open. So that sucks. Hi. Okay, so I've been reading this part slowly, but the chapter I'm on is the one where Nikolai is finally kind of forming an alliance with Eri, and I guess trying to really get her to fall for him. And I'm having such a hard time getting through those interactions because I don't want them to be together. I mean, I get it. I understand. It's the politics of it, but like, I didn't come here for politics. I came here for Zoya and Nikolai. I'm also anxious to get to the next chapter because Zoya is going to see Alina and Mal. What did I tell you? I knew they would be in this book. I think surprisingly, I'm pretty excited about Alina and Mal being in this book, more so than the Darkling being in this book, because I was actually kind of hoping that in this installment we would kind of get to see Mal and Alina. I didn't think it would be because of the situation that they're in right now, but I did wonder if we would see Mal and Alina, because in Ruin and Rising the epilogue hints that Zoya and Genya and David go and visit Alina. So I was kind of hoping that Zoya would have like a scene where she goes and visits Alina. I'm still unsure of how Alina is going to help, other than like the Darkling wants to see her, which great, but neither of them have powers, I guess. I didn't think about that. Neither of them have powers. Whoa. Think about that. The two most powerful people in history and like one of a kind. It's just wild that both of them lost their powers. Poor David. He was talking about how he wouldn't build something that would kill people, basically. And then says, the things the Darkling asked me to do, I did them mindlessly, thoughtlessly. I helped put the collar around Alina's neck. I created the Lumia that allowed him to enter the fold without her power. Without my help, he never could have. I won't be responsible for this too. I always think about that. I always think about how much guilt David must have about everything that he did. He's just a creator. He's very, very obsessed with his creation process and creating things and just his work in general and making new stuff. He's just so intrigued by that. And when things were happening, like when he put the collar around Alina's neck and created different things that helped the Darkling, I definitely didn't think he was doing it with malicious intent. It always just seemed like David was caught up in creating new things and intrigued by what those things could do rather than what outcome creating those things would have. And so now it's interesting that he's reflecting on that, because I can't imagine how much guilt he would have, or anybody would have who was in a position like that where he wasn't trying to cause harm, but he ended up causing a lot of harm. And I really appreciate that Genya was very supportive of his feelings, because she knows what it's like to be used by the Darkling, and she was just going to support him whether or not she agreed with the sentiment. Also, something I keep forgetting to even bring up is in the very beginning they were talking about the apparat being in Fjorda, and I didn't know if they were talking about the apparat, the one we know and hate. But yeah, he's in Fjorda trying to make alliance with Fjordans, and I don't know what's going on with this guy. His power is back? Okay, sorry. So the Darkling, right? He sees Alina. They have their reunion, which, by the way, was very emotional. I was very emotional through it, but the Darkling like grabs Alina's hand and there's darkness everywhere. So I don't know if I'm not disliking this plot of him being back as much as I thought that I would when I first read it in the last book, because I just watched Shadow and Bone. And so like it's fresh in my mind of them just barely beginning to go on their journey of taking down the Darkling. I don't know if that's why it's not bothering me as much as I thought it would be. Yeah, I mean, I'm not hating it, but it does feel out of place. Wait, a couple other things that I forgot to say. Nikolai's wedding is the next chapter. I'm not ready for that. I really hope it doesn't work out somehow. Sorry, Nikolai. Sorry for your loss, Nikolai, but you ain't getting married. But back to the last chapter with Alina and Mal. Mal was making jokes and I was like, see, Mal is a great character. I can't, I don't even want to read this chapter. I don't want to read this chapter. I'm so not, I don't know. You heard Olive? She doesn't want this wedding either. Let's call it off. Not Toilo wearing a kefta for Nikolai's wedding that I don't want to happen, but that's very sweet. That's very sweet of you. It's a great sentiment. Let's save it for Zoya and his wedding, okay? Thank you. Yeah, you're gonna keep catching me updating through this chapter because I can't. But the Jenya and David scene right now, David and Jenya are the sweetest little beings that deserve all of the happiness in the world, along with Nikolai not getting married unless it's to Zoya, which like that would be all the happiness that Nikolai needed, right? Not this sham of a wedding. I take everything back. Chapter 15 was everything that I ever needed. I can't believe it. I think it's so funny that in King of Scars, I literally said, when did Jenya and David get married? Where was my invite? And I just got invited. Chapter 15 invited me. And I'm so sorry that I doubted you, Nikolai. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I thought you would be dumb enough to marry somebody that's not Zoya. I just can't wait for Zoya to get back and realize that you didn't get married. But is she gonna get back? Because it seems like the Darkling is doing something. Especially because Nikolai felt it. Nikolai felt it somehow, and he got a glimpse of Alina, so. Good morning. So I last updated you about chapter 15, which was the wedding, and you were supposed to think it was Nikolai's wedding, but it was actually David and Jenya's wedding. I was so happy. I also still can't get over the fact that Talia was holding Jenya's train for her. I'm gonna be really upset if anything happens to the twins. I only ended up reading one more chapter, which was Zoya's chapter, because I really need to know what's happening with the Darkling. So basically the Darkling has his powers back. He somehow smuggled a thorn from the thorn of the bee woman and stabbed Alina and Mal and got his powers back because he needed both of their blood. And I mean, we all saw it coming. He wasn't gonna have a redemption arc. There was no way he was gonna have a redemption arc. And I knew Alina and Mal would help somehow, but I don't know. I'm under the impression that they're not gonna be in the rest of the book. I'm sorry, what? David? They just had a wedding! If this is real, Lee Bardugo hates me. Hates me. Wow. Yeah. So chapter 20, huh? David's really dead, huh? You just have a wedding like that. You just have a wedding like that, and then you're gonna kill the groom. Okay. Well. So we just had a cameo from Kaz, Jesper, and Wylan, which in theory is really fun. I love seeing them, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this book in me, because the things that are bothering me aren't even the fact of the Darkling being back. I was loving the last book. If you watched that vlog, you'll know that I was actually really loving King of Scars, and then it was the last like 60, 70 pages where things took a turn for me that I just wasn't enjoying, and then the Darkling came back and I was pissed. And I was excited to see Alina and Mal, and I knew that we would see them at some point, but I guess I'm at a loss for why these characters are even showing up, because my theory was that we were gonna see Alina and Mal and they were gonna help with taking down the Darkling, and that's not even what happened. They came for almost no reason. It was just to push the plot forward so that the Darkling could get his powers back. That's all they were used for. I can't see them coming back at this point. I mean, what is Alina gonna be able to do? She's not a sun summoner anymore. And then you have Nina's perspective, which again doesn't make any sense to the rest of the story. It's doing a better job in this book connecting the two because the Fjordans are trying to march on Ravka, so they've like bombed and surprise attacked them. And in one instance, Nina was able to tell them that they were gonna try to surprise attack them so that they were ready, but then she missed the fact that they were gonna surprise bomb them. So they ended up getting bombed, and that's why David died. But other than those connections, there's still nothing concrete connecting them. She hasn't found anything out about the Jur de Parem in terms of why they were giving it to pregnant women. And we're on this whole new other storyline where they're getting close to the Prince of Fjerda, who's really sick, and his mom is kind of on to Nina. It's a whole thing I don't want to get into because it doesn't matter to the story. Oh my God, they're doing yard work again. But basically what I think I was trying to say was just that this book, I think she tried to bring in aspects from the show, where in the show there's a lot of mashing up of the worlds of Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone. And so I think she's doing that in this book, and it's just not working for me. Hopefully I'll like the ending, but I'm gonna take a break for today because I don't know. Hello, good morning. So I'm about 150-ish pages from finishing Rule of Wolves, and I keep asking myself, was it the marketing that said this was Nikolai's duology? Or did I make it up in my head? Because this book and the first book is not about Nikolai. He happens to be a POV, but I haven't learned anything I couldn't have guessed or known from previous books in the Shadow and Bone series about Nikolai. It's anything but about Nikolai. At this point, now that the Darkling's back, you're learning more about the Darkling than you are about Nikolai. We just had one moment with Nikolai where he met his real dad for the first time, and it was confirmed to him that, yeah, I'm not a Lance-off. So that was an interesting moment. I really liked the tenderness of his dad, how protective his dad is over Nikolai and not getting in the way of his position, which I think is really interesting, and I would love to know more about that. And I just felt like there was no depth to this chapter in terms of Nikolai's feelings, and maybe it's because he's in shock of it all, but like you don't even get that. You don't even get him saying like, yeah, I'm in shock about this, I don't know how to feel about this, I need time to think about it. It just kind of like happens, and he's like, oh shit, okay, so I am a bastard. Sick. I do think it's kind of funny because I've always kind of in my mind thought that Hannah and Nina were together. They sort of already act that way in some instances, but now you just got the first scene where they kiss and confess for realsies, that they love each other, that they like each other, they want to be together. Han is also a character that is really in question about her gender identity and her sexuality, and that's something that we're kind of seeing on the surface, but I like that aspect. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into all my thoughts right now until I finish it. So I know I said I probably wouldn't update for the rest of the book, but here I am. And it's basically because I have a prediction, more so a wish for this book. So they're in the middle of fighting the Fjordans, and Nikolai is basically saying that he has no other choice except to go into his beast form, his beastie boy form, because they're losing pretty badly. And he's kind of like, I know this will make my country turn on me, but I have no other choice because I need to save them, and I'd rather save them than worry about my crown, especially because he's already a bastard and people question him about that. So I think he's sort of at a breaking point, and he'd just rather save people. So he's about to transform, and I thought to myself, what if they really do turn their back on him? His brother, is it even his brother though? Because I think it's an actual Lance-off. I don't know, the guy, the king they keep calling the false king who's after the crown. What if he comes, rules, and then Zoya and Nikolai can be together because he's not a king anymore? I mean, honestly, I think that they're gonna end up together in the end, no matter what position Nikolai takes. I don't think either one of them is going to die. I think it's gonna be a side character that I care about, because that just seems to keep happening to me, is that all the side characters that I care deeply about just die. for no good reason. So I definitely don't think they're gonna die. But I mean, I don't know what else would happen between them. It's been building up to this. So if they don't end up together, sorry about this lighting, but I have my little child on me right now. Okay, so I just finished the part where Zoya turns into Juris in his dragon form. And I guess that's like what the whole open the door was about, was her opening the door to, well, it seemed like it was opening the door to loving people and letting people in, but also letting him in so that she could transform into the dragon. And she's basically won the war for them, is my assumption. I'm pretty sure that's how it ended. And it's made her look like a saint, obviously. And the Darkling kind of like fucks around and goes, oh, Sancta Zoya, and kneels in the battlefield and winks at Nikolai. Which again, I'm not really sure what the Darkling's purpose here is, but whatever, that's a whole other story. Here's the thing, like, I don't hate this book. It's probably a low 3 stars for me. I don't think I could give a Leigh Bardugo book 2 stars. I don't know why, but it's definitely my least favorite book by Leigh Bardugo that I've read. One last thing, something I didn't actually make the connection about in the last book, because I guess partly you don't really know if it's hyperbolic to say that a dragon lives within Zoya, or if they were being serious about the fact that Juris literally meant that a dragon was living inside of Zoya. But I think that's such a like a connection that Nikolai and Zoya now have, because they both have something else living within them. He has his little Darkling beast, and now she has Juris's beast. I just think that's really interesting, and I just made that connection right now. So I don't know what that means, but I just want Zoya and Nikolai to be together, okay? That's what that means. Here's the thing. I don't care about Hannah. I really don't, but she definitely didn't deserve to die, and Nina doesn't deserve her to die, especially because Nina was just like finding happiness again. And I just feel like Leigh really is out here not letting Nikolai or Nina have happiness. I just feel like, let them find happiness, Leigh. The only thing good that comes from this book is Zoya and Nikolai kissing finally. A 5 out of 5. I don't care. This. Okay, so I'm here. I'm ready to chat. It's been like a day, a full 24 hours, and I finally have thought about my feelings, my rating. I'm just gonna start off by saying that I have so many mixed feelings about Rule of Wolves. And I think right now my rating is a 3 stars, a just solid 3 stars. I definitely don't think I'll ever be able to give a Leigh Bardugo, especially a Leigh Bardugo in the Grishaverse, anything lower than a 3 stars, because at the end of the day, this is a comfort world for me. I love these characters, and I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. I think she has strong characters, strong points of view. She really explores specific topics really well in this series, in both King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. She talks a lot about trauma and abusive relationships and how you move forward from those relationships, right? So I think that that was such a strong element and a strong part of both of these books that hit me really deeply. I loved seeing all of the characters. There were even cameos in here that didn't bother me as much as I thought they would, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of times cameos in books don't serve a purpose other than to please the fans. And to me, that's totally fine if you can make it work. I do think that in some cases it worked really well in here, and in other cases it didn't work as well, especially like the ending when Inej is there at the coronation. didn't work for me. But Alina coming into it actually felt really seamless. It felt normal, especially because at the end of Ruin and Rising, you know that Zoya and Alina actually visit one another and see each other and catch up, and they're actual friends. So to me, the Alina perspective, or not perspective, but Alina cameo really worked for me, and I enjoyed them. I was really anticipating that first cameo, and then it was kind of a nice little surprise at the end that she was at the coronation, but it makes sense. Those parts make sense to me. The Six of Crows stuff doesn't make sense to me, but then at the same time, I think it was just a tool to set up Six of Crows 3. So I think what I'm gonna do is talk about the things that I didn't like first, just to get them out of the way, and then end on a positive note about this book and the series and my reading experience. I don't know what my #1 complaint is, but I think that it's a close tie between Nina's perspective being and feeling unnecessary, and there being too many perspectives, and especially too many perspectives that don't make sense. So starting with Nina's perspective, the thing is I love Nina, and I would have loved to have her perspective if it fit into the overarching story. I said in King of Scars that her story never converges with the overarching main plot lines with Zoya and Nikolai, and that's true. It doesn't happen in King of Scars, and it doesn't happen for a really good portion of Rule of Wolves, but you finally get that small payoff where Nina is in the same place as Nikolai and Zoya and actually have interactions with them. So in the end, their storylines converge, but the rest of Nina's perspective doesn't make sense. While I enjoy Nina, I love Nina as a character, and I really liked seeing what Nina was up to. And in theory, I liked a lot of the plot lines that were happening in her story. The problem was there were too many, and none of them ever came to an explanation. You never really understood what was going on. I had to assume that the pregnant women that were getting fed Jur de Parem were being used to create this army that the Fjordans could control, but it was never explained to you. So when I first saw that she was in the King of Scars duology, I thought, okay, this makes sense because she's probably back in Ravka after everything happened in Crooked Kingdom, and is deciding how to go forward from here. But that's not what's happening. She's in Fjorda, and in the end, she ends up becoming a Fjordan queen, basically, because she is now engaged to this prince who isn't actually the prince, it's Hannah. And that was also another thing in her perspective that was kind of frustrating, was that there was this forced relationship almost. From the moment that Hannah was introduced, you kind of knew that this is going to be something. And while I in theory like this, it wasn't executed well. It was so quick, and I don't necessarily think that, especially at this point in time, right after Nina buried Matthias, that she needed to move on so quickly. And it's not that she couldn't have moved on. It's not that I didn't want her and Hannah to be together. I just think that the rate at which their relationship happened was so quick, especially for Leigh Bardugo, because Leigh Bardugo can do a slow burn like nobody's business. We all know if we've read Six of Crows. As a matter of fact, we all know if we've read this duology, because Zoya and Nikolai, Jesus, that took so long. So I just felt like their relationship wasn't well developed, and it really bothered me. Just so many things about her perspective bothered me, but the overall issue is just that it didn't fit into this story. So that leads me to the too many perspectives problem. In the beginning, you have the normal amount of perspectives. It's Zoya, Nina, and Nikolai. But then in the second half of the book, just like King of Scars, you're getting extra POVs. And in here, you got 2 extra POVs. You got the Darkling's POV, and you got Mayu's perspective. Mayu's POV did not need to be there. If we were giving anybody POVs, it should have been Genya or the twins. One of the twins, both of the twins. And that's what I felt like last time. I felt like we could have taken Nina's perspective away and given it to Genya or Talia or Tamar, because they were very important people in this book, and I would have just loved to hear from their perspectives. And to be fair, the Darkling's perspective was actually a very strong perspective. It was a well done perspective. It definitely felt like the Darkling when you were reading it, because he's arrogant and he just thinks everybody is below him, and he just is who he is. But his perspective, him coming back, truly is pointless. It has one purpose and one purpose only, for him to become a martyr, which, fine. I could see that it's not out of character for the Darkling to become a martyr because he wanted Ravka to love him for everything that he thought he was doing for Ravka. Sure, get it, got it, good. But you didn't need a whole book with him in it for that, because you just didn't. You didn't. I theorized that he would get a redemption arc, but I didn't actually think it would happen, and it kind of did. It did and it didn't. It was a lot of like questioning for Genya, Alina, and Zoya if they could forgive him, because if they were capable of giving him forgiveness, then that meant that he deserved to actually just die and be in peace. But it felt like the whole Darkling thing led to helping set up the third Six of Crows. So overall, there were too many plots and too many perspectives, and because of that, I feel like not everything got wrapped up well enough, or you just didn't get answers to it at all. And there were things that were done so quickly that it almost felt like Leigh Bardugo got overwhelmed with the amount of things that she put into this duology, that she was like, forget it, I'm not gonna wrap it up. I think one of my big gripes too in this, like probably bigger than anything else, is the fact that this is said to be Nikolai's books. But this is not Nikolai's book. Neither of them are Nikolai's books. These are Zoya's books. This is about Zoya. Zoya becomes the queen in the end. This is Zoya's series. And honestly, I still would have read it if you would have told me that this was Zoya's series, because I love Zoya and I love Nikolai and I think they deserve everything. But don't tell me that this is Nikolai's story, because you don't know anything new about Nikolai except that he meets his dad, and that like is the briefest encounter. Nikolai just kind of accepts it happens and is like, okay, sick. So I'm a bastard, but I love this country, so I'm gonna keep trying to rule it, and whatever comes, comes. And then they're losing in a battle and he decides to let his beastie boy fly, and then is like, forget it, no, I'm already a bastard, I'm a monster, I can't rule, this isn't for me, and then gives it up to Zoya anyway, which makes sense. I think I said there had to be something that was gonna happen so that they could be together, because that was very clear that they had to be together. Also, I wrote Leigh Bardugo and told her that I would riot if they weren't together, so I think she knew she had to like figure something out. And I do wish that we got to know more about him the way that we got to know Zoya, because in reality, you got so deep into Zoya's backstory and her feelings and her trauma, and I felt like Nikolai's was just very surface level, and it just, I didn't get what I wanted from his character, because he didn't have the same type of arc and impact in the story. But I'm just happy that he finally got love, because he deserves it. And then another big complaint is character death. A specific character death that I'll never get over. But the reason it's a complaint is because it felt like there was no purpose behind it other than to shock you. So you give us, the reader, this wedding. So the false royal wedding was actually so that Genya and David could have an official celebration of them getting married, and it was really beautiful, and I cried, and I was just so happy, because I even joked about not being invited to the wedding in my last vlog. And I was so glad that we got to see that on page, and especially because I was so nervous that Nikolai was really getting married. Problem is that David then dies right after. And when I first read it, I was very, very upset. I thought, okay, so Leigh is making the statement about the carelessness of war and how war takes people carelessly and at random and with no warning at all. Like, you can be in the middle of something very happy, but when you're in the middle of war, anything could happen. But then no one else dies. Like, there's no other major character deaths to like solidify the fact of the carelessness of war. I think if you're trying to make that statement and that impact, you would probably kill off another character who means a lot. So that's why I did think that maybe one of the twins was going to die. I was like, what if Jenya's dying? I even thought that maybe Leigh Bardugo would be that person to kill off one of her main characters, like main characters. So I did feel like David's death was really out of place and I didn't understand it. I cried a lot about it. But everything else I really did like. I thought that the slow buildup to Zoya and Nikolai's relationship really did pay off. I do think that despite me complaining about him just giving up his crown, I do think like he's still gonna be a king, they're gonna get married, you know, that's what's gonna happen. But I do ultimately think that Zoya is a natural born leader, and it is kind of planted throughout this story of how she is so ride or die for her country. Like, she will do anything to protect her country and the people in this country. And you see that in every aspect of it. And even in King of Scars, when she is so protective of the people who were carelessly murdered during the Civil War, which is the war with the Darkling. Just like the way she needs to be the voice for these people, and she feels that way just naturally. That's just naturally who she is. So it makes sense to me for her to be a queen. And I didn't hate it. I didn't hate that she was crowned. I just was confused about him just suddenly giving up the crown out of nowhere. I liked seeing Alina and Mal. I really loved that. I thought I was gonna hate that cameo, but it wasn't even about Alina coming back into the story and trying to save the day, because she's not a sun summoner anymore. What was she gonna do? But it was her just being there and being supportive of Zoya. Just showcased the solid friendships that are in here, and Alina just even being at the coronation. I do think this was really well paced, but this book didn't hit me as hard as King of Scars did. I'm not really sure why, but I think it was because there was more of a focus on the politics and the war in here than there was on like Zoya and Nikolai and like their romance, but also just Zoya's heartbreak and the tragedies in her life. But that brings me back to the friendships, is that like Zoya and Jenya's friendship was really important to me, because I love female friendships in general, but I also just love the friendships in here as a whole, because they're more than friendships. They're like a found family, and I'm a huge sucker for found families. And it just, especially with Jenya going through the grief that she's going through after David dies, the way that she relies on Zoya. And then obviously the number one thing is I'm just so glad that Zoya and Nikolai are together, and that kiss and the way that he flirted with her, like had a little dirty flirty moment with her. Oh, and probably the last like really satisfying thing that happened in this book was that the Apparat finally got his. He finally got his. I hate the Apparat, and he finally got his. Oh, that made me so happy. So yeah, that's our reading vlog for Rule of Wolves. I'm sure I forgot so many talking points, but there was a lot that happened in this book. So please leave me anything in the comments that you want to talk about or that I didn't like go over. Just make sure to say that it's spoilers, I guess, because I don't know. I don't want somebody to get spoiled just by reading the comments. But yeah, let's talk in the comments, especially if you think I forgot something or glossed over something or didn't go into detail, or if I was wrong about something, because that happens. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!